Hello, my name is Thomas. Thank you very much for downloading this episode of British Culture, Albion Never Dies. This is Back in Britain 7, my 66th episode. If you Google British Culture Podcast, I do come up in the search results. Where exactly may depend on your IP address, your phone, your laptop, all kinds of factors, what you Googled before. Who knows what's playing with the algorithm. Number one, pretty consistently, is the Guardian UK Culture Podcast, and of course they are a major newspaper, so if they put out a British Culture Podcast, of course it's going to dominate. In some Google results, I'm number 2, which is fantastic. In some, it's let's have a look. It could be the British Culture Club, which is for those learning English as a foreign language. When I first started doing this podcast, I had a look around just to see if there was anyone else doing the same thing. Maybe I didn't need to do this, maybe I shouldn't do this, or maybe there was someone who I could reach out to and we could kind of collaborate and see what we could do together. But I couldn't really find anything that does this, just general approach to UK culture outside of English as a foreign language. The British Culture Club, they seem really popular. I've looked at some of their stuff, it looks pretty good, but again, it's a learning English resource. It's not for native speakers of the English language. There is one surprise to me, which is Bass Culture UK, how bass music shaped British culture, looking at ska, reggae and dub in the UK. So I was surprised that was one of the top podcasts, as I say, just from a Google search. Because often if you think, British music's influence on the world, you might be thinking of, say, the Beatles. So I don't know if there's a Beatles podcast. Maybe I should have checked before I started recording this. But as I was just looking through the general, top 10 results, and I must admit, I'm pretty pleased to be, in the top 5, maybe even in the top 2, depending where you are. Maybe give it a go. Google British Culture Podcast and see where do I come up. Maybe screenshots sent to me. Let me know. I'm very curious. Anyway. Of course I'm curious about myself. It's called ego surfing when you search yourself on the internet. I've had a very rare week, in that I've had very, very little travelling. I've just spent my time seeing some friends and relaxing, because, I'm enjoying my new job, but of course you do need a bit of rest and relaxation. Like I say, really enjoying my job. I had promised a friend of mine, well, you know what, if you recommend me for a job, I'll buy you a Betty's. Betty's tea shop is my favourite tea shop in Yorkshire, and so I said it for a joke, really, kind of, maybe, but anyway, I said I'll buy you a Betty's, and that alliterative phrase has come true. My friend recommended me for this job, I got it, I'm enjoying it, so I made good on my promise and took my friend to Betty's tea shop in Ilkley. There is a song called Ilkley Moor Bar Tat, or Ilkley Moor Without a Hat, about a man who goes up onto Ilkley Moor chasing Mary Jane, and he catches his death of cold. So I made sure not to go up onto the moor because I didn't have my hat. I just went to Betty's, had a lovely afternoon. Why is this tea shop so iconic? Why is it so popular? It's something to do, it's the quality, it's the service, it's the environment, it's the atmosphere. I had a look on their website of how did Betty's even come about. It was founded in 1919 by a young Swiss gentleman who'd come to the UK in 1907, leaving Switzerland with the dream of establishing his own business. There's a story that he arrived in London having been told to go to a specific address, but when he arrived he was just tired, worn out, and couldn't remember the name of it, but remembered it sounded like bratwurst, German word for sausage, I guess, and then he asked somebody, how do I get to Bradford, and they kind of worked out he probably meant Bradford, and so he was sent up to Bradford, and he ended up going up to Harrogate. I'm not quite sure what happens between then and him finding a home in Harrogate, which is, I guess, close to Bradford, but anyway, he arrived apparently penniless, jobless, and unable to speak English well. That's what the Betty's website says, and they say they've come a long way since then. He set up his tea room in Harrogate, 1919, and it just grew and grew, and now their specialities are delivered all over the world. They have their online shop, and they share their knowledge and passion for cooking, baking, and good food at Betty's Cookery Store. I was curious, why is it called Betty's? There's no apostrophe, it's not like there's one Betty, it could be a collection of Betty's, but there are, according to company, four possibilities. One is Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. It could have been named after her, although some people say that's pretty unlikely because she didn't come to public prominence until she married the Duke of York in 1923, and of course it was founded in 1919, so maybe not. One, it could be Betty Lupton, former manager of a Harrogate spa. That could be. One is the daughter of a previous occupant of the Harrogate premises who died of tuberculosis, or a small child who interrupted a meeting at which the choice of name was being discussed. So there's 4 possibilities of who was Betty, but nobody knows who Betty is. And the Fat Rascal is one of their most popular cakes, biscuits, scones, whatever you want to describe it as. Have a look on their website. As I say, they gave me a lovely afternoon. And I gave my friend a lovely afternoon by treating her to a Betty's because she'd recommended me for a job. On the Sunday, I was an usher at the cathedral, Bradford Cathedral, where people have worshipped there for well over 1,000 years. And being an usher, I hand out the order of service for the sung Eucharist. So I've realised in recent years that the Church of England service is quite special. It goes all through the Book of Common Prayer, and it's also quite musical, filled with hymns, choir music, organ music. It is something to be experienced. What else could I say? I am, of course, an usher there. Normally an usher would also collect the collection, but at the moment they're not passing baskets round and so on. There's actually a card machine you can tap, make donations in a variety of ways. But I think as a COVID measure, a couple of years ago they decided not to pass round the thing. Equally, the doors nowadays stay open. There are quite a few kind of COVID concessions, but you can see the service online on the Bradford Cathedral YouTube channel. I'm not sure if you'll spot me. So a bit careful with showing members of the congregation. But anyway, they've got a great social media account. I've often shared their Instagram stuff. I think it's great fun. I also got a fantastic new tie. You may have seen that on my Instagram, on my Fleming Never Dies account. I wanted a Turnbull and Asser tie to celebrate the job. And, I looked on eBay. I wasn't sure if I could quite stretch to a new one, and it's quite easy to find nice ties at, say, charity shops or eBay. People often get given them as gifts and then just kind of pass them on, or sometimes they get given ties as retirement presents, which always strikes me as funny because a lot of people go into retirement and say, finally, I no longer need to wear a tie. It always seems a funny retirement gift. But anyway, lots of people have gifted them, passed them on, so I just saw one. It was under £20. Very happy, and I just really liked it. It's navy and pink, kind of a nice little micro pattern, I guess. Really liked it, bought it. The seller was really nice, sending me kind of messages, and it arrived actually with a handwritten note. Thank you, Janet. It was really nice. And the label for Turnbull and Asser was just a bit different from I had a previous one from them, which I did buy new as a manager. But it was just a bit different, so I took a picture of it and sent it to a few friends in the James Bond community, experts on clothing, and it was Matt Spacer of bondsuits.com. He immediately let me know that it must have been made in the 2001-2002 run, and then surprised me that Pierce Brosnan, Die Another Day, wore a tie from the same series, I think, but it's the same tie but a different colour. James Bond's one is yellow and navy, and mine is pink and navy. But he sent me a photo. You can see in the film. It's when he's on an aeroplane going into London. There's a beautiful air hostess, and there's a bit of turbulence. The air hostess gives him a martini, and he says, "Good thing I asked for it shaken." But the beautiful air hostess is Roger Moore's daughter, which I think is a lovely, lovely touch. It's a lovely tie, and as I say, I bought it with no thought of a James Bond connection, but there was one, and that's jolly nice. But again, I would not have known it if I hadn't asked. A bunch of friends, I say, it was Matt Spacer who got back to me. I'm going to close up. Somebody actually messaged me recently, Roland Hume, who I interviewed a short while ago, saying, I'm really enjoying your podcast. You have them at just the right length. 15 minutes, give or take, is perfect when I have something to do and I need something to listen to. Yes, maybe the length of time it takes to iron a couple of shirts or do a bit of cooking or whatever you're doing, whatever jobs you're doing. So I'll keep this one fairly short. I do enjoy the longer one, sometimes the deep dives. But this is just my diary entry. This is the calm before the storm because, of course, it's the Platinum Jubilee coming up. The Queen was, of course, crowned in 1953. She became Queen in 1952. Oh, terrible. I'm not going to cut that out. I'm just going to keep that. But it's her Platinum Jubilee coming up. There'll be big celebrations, and so, of course, I'm going to take my recorder with me. I'm going to record some of what's going on. I'll be taking pictures. I'll be sharing all about it. So that's all coming up. Somebody did suggest, I did a piece on UK-US cultural differences, and Ismail messaged me and said, you could do one on differences between the UK and Turkey. You could do like an Englishman in Istanbul or something like that. So I'm gonna ponder that one. I thought it's really interesting. I haven't really included a lot of my Turkish language studies or my Turkish experiences on this podcast, and it's been a major part of my life. So I'm going to start pondering that more and more and more. Jubilee stuff coming up. Some Turkish stuff after that, some more Back in Britain, and I feel it's obligatory now for me to say it. The alphabet of Britishness will come back, starting with S. I have a decent number of suggestions, but again, just waiting until I have, maybe just a place of my own, so I can sit in the evenings, do my research. It's coming up. But, keeping this short, I hope you have a lovely week. Thank you very much for downloading, and give me a Google. Where am I in the Google rankings? Let me know. You can find me on Fleming Never Dies on Instagram. Lots of people have found me on YouTube. Thank you very much to those who have. It's just youtube.com/British Culture. So there's not been much new. Again, sorting out my life here. But when there is something new, I'll let you all know. And of course, you can email me at albionneverdies@gmail.com. So keep in touch. Thank you for all the messages. See you later.